Can you tell us about the day, Stephen, that you were not accepted to film school?
Oh, that was a wonderful time. Yes, I tried to get into film school in Central Florida, at the University of Central Florida, mostly due to the Blair Witch Project, the success of that coming out of there. That was a really inspirational movie for me. And there you had to go through a 2-year program to be able to be accepted into the film school. And so I had a bunch of friends. I was in a film club. I was doing a bunch of shorts and things with them. And then we all submitted. I was the weird genre kid. I was the one that wanted to make horror movies and action movies and comedy, and everyone else was kind of the artist filmmaker. So all of my friends ended up getting in, but me, because I was the weirdo. So that was disappointing, of course, because you spent 2 years trying to get into a program. But what I did was I ended up leaving the school at that point, moved over to Valencia College and finished up my AA degree, and then spent the rest of my college fund on my first feature, which was called The Night Owl, and went out with friends in the woods with a camera, like everybody starts with, and then ended up signing a really decent distribution deal on that. So by the time the movie was already on store shelves, my friends were graduating. So kind of kicked it off that way.
And of those friends that graduated, how many actually work in the film industry now?
A lot of them still work in the industry. A lot of them are out here in LA, actually, and we got to reconnect when we moved out here. And so it's kind of neat to see where everyone is from that group. Some are more successful than others, of course, but a lot of them, are still chasing the same dream.
And how did they tell you weren't accepted? Is just a form letter? Right.
Yeah, I got a form letter saying that I wasn't accepted, and just kind of like, oh, sorry. And it was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have submitted with a short film about a young girl in a bikini chopping people up with samurai swords, I guess. But I thought it was cool at the time.
They didn't give you an answer. They didn't give you a reason why.
They didn't, no. I know that they had certain quotas to fill as far as other types of people to be allowed in. And so I'd heard that reasoning later, that I didn't fit the certain quota they needed for certain things. But it all worked out for the best for me.
So do you ever replay that if you had been accepted, where you think your life would have taken you? Or there may not have been much difference?
I mean, I would bet it'd be very different, because I got into a different school program. That school got me my first job out of college, which was camera operating at Nickelodeon Studios on the back lot at Universal, which I made a bunch of friends there that I'm still friends with today and still work with today too. So I think it definitely would have been a totally different path. A lot of the people in that group moved out to LA immediately, started trying to work as soon as they got out here. And I stayed in Orlando and built up a company. My company, Abyssmal Entertainment, celebrates 20 years next year, which is exciting. Oh. And so started building up that multimedia company and getting more and more clients and starting to do more and more films and producing for hire. So yeah, I'm pretty happy the way everything turned out as far as that one rejection letter.
And do you think that rejection letter did you a favor in that it made you want to take risks? Because you kind of had this chip on your shoulder, or maybe you didn't, but just that you were willing to try something that you weren't going to take the safe route?
I feel like I'm definitely a risk taker in situations like that. I'm always the one in the video game that runs into battle suicidally. And so I started early. I started when I was 16. I got my passion pretty quickly and knew that I wanted to go into movie making. And so when I was 16, I grew up in the Florida Keys on an island, so there wasn't nearly as many opportunities, but I went and got a job at the local cable access station. I started managing a Blockbuster Video. I got an internship with our film commission. So the first films that I ever got to go on was True Lies with James Cameron. So being there on the 7 Mile Bridge when they land the Harrier jets and they're blowing up cars and stuff and hanging Jamie Lee Curtis out of a helicopter, I was like, wow, every movie's going to be like this, which it is not. I'll come to find out later. But
any other impact that rejection had on you?
I think the one thing about the rejection letter was it kind of gave you a place where you had to make a choice. It's like, okay, what am I going to do now to get over this? Because these people said that you're not good enough to be this in this program, but I still felt pretty confident. And so my goal was, I knew that I needed to make a feature. I knew that feature films were where all the real money was, and you can get into video stores and do all these different things. So that first year I made 6 short films in a row, because I was like, if I make 6 short films, all a feature is one really long short. So if I can make 6 shorts in a row, then I'll probably teach myself enough to be able to go and make a full movie. And so that's what I did. And just using friends and everything, you know, went and did it. And then I started getting a reputation for myself in town because they're like, well, how did this 23-year-old idiot get a movie in Best Buy? And all the older people that were all upset because they're like, well, we've been trying to, you know, do this for years. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I just went to the video store and saw who was selling movies. And I called them and said, hey, I have a movie. Do you want to sell it? And they said, yes. And then you're in Best Buy. And people are so confused. But it seemed to me, just at the time, common sense. You figure out how that pathway works. And then once you get the machine working, then it all works out.
Can you expand on that a little bit more? Was it really that simple as finding who's the distributor on this film, finding their number, calling them?
I mean, to me, because I managed video stores since I was 16. So I kind of understood how the video store process worked. I knew that you would have different chains between studios to distributors to home video markets. So I kind of understood that whole process at the beginning. And then when DVDs came out in the late 90s, that totally changed the home video market. And those were so much cheaper because at the time a VHS tape cost $80 a piece and a DVD comes out and it costs $20. So you're already like, oh, well, this digital format's completely changing the way the market works because Blockbuster could buy 5 times as many DVDs as one movie. So that's when they started doing the guarantee to be here and everything switched over to DVD. So then when I was in college looking at home video, I was like, all right, well, I understand how this works. And I knew I wanted to make a low budget horror movie. So I literally went to Hollywood Video and looked at all the boxes of low budget horror movies that came out every week or every other week and saw what company is on the back of this box. And it wasn't Universal, it wasn't Sony, you know, it was very small companies, Brain Damage Films and whatnot. And so you would look that company up because I'm like, all right, well, this company is the one that sold to this video store. They're getting movies out there. And I just happened to luck out with the very first company I called, said yes. And you know, we ended up getting some money from it and it paid off the movie. It wasn't a lot of money, but we didn't spend a lot of money at the time. So it all kind of worked out that way. Nowadays, it's gotten obviously a lot harder. Well, it's just as easy. It's just harder to make money because you can get your movie out wherever you want nowadays, or you can put it on YouTube and get 100 million views if you want, you know, if you technically could. But back then you didn't have YouTube. This was back in 2002, 2003. And so video stores were still prominent, the prominent way to get movies, but the digital revolution was happening. And so it was easier to get your, you know, $3,000 horror movie on a DVD on a shelf at the time. Whereas nowadays that probably isn't going to happen.
When did you leave Blockbuster?
Well, I went to college. I was at Blockbuster for 3 years in the Keys. And then when I went to college in Orlando, I worked for another video store called the Video Superstore. And I was there for 2 years, I think. And then that store ended up going under. Like during the whole downfall of video stores, you know, eventually when Netflix came out, back then it was a service where you they mailed you a DVD in the mail. When that started happening and people didn't even have to leave their house anymore, then video stores started going away and Blockbuster couldn't keep up because they didn't believe in that at the time. And mom and pop video stores, like they were just, you know, they couldn't keep up with it either. So at that time, the whole video market kind of fell out. And that's why I got out of that business.